And you will know my name is the Lord. And I'm walking here. I'm walking here.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Groovy.
Okay. My arcade dream, I get a bunch of friends together. We sit down with just a shit ton of quarters, just like too many quarters. And we don't leave until we play the entirety of either the X-Men arcade game or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Turtles in Time. Like, you got to play the entire thing through and you just keep popping quarters in to continue each time you get knocked out.
You would 100% run out of money.
Everyone says that. They're probably right, but I want to see it through.
See, I would just want to go up to like a pinball machine with that amount of change, like a wheelbarrow full of change, park it next to it and just go, I got next. But anyway.
To transition into Batman talk, I went hiking yesterday, and I can understand why Batman carries around a bunch of drugs to just fucking get him amped to move again. Because like, if I had that choice, I would have totally taken whatever bat cocaine he had on him to get me up and down that hill. Instead, I had to just use like normal willpower, which sucks. I'm sure Batman understands that too. Drugs are way better than willpower.
I like the idea of you jamming adrenaline into your heart to just kind of make it up your driveway at the end of the day.
This was a steep hill. All right, I say hill, but it's the closest Wisconsin has to like a mountain. It's a lot of rocks. It was slippery.
It was a slight slope. It was a wheelchair ramp.
I almost saw a child fall to his, probably not death or like rubber, but he would have fallen to grievous harm.
I saw a child fall to his death. I did nothing.
I made a token gesture to be like, I'll catch him if he falls. And like, I know I would have missed that kid. I totally would have biffed.
Everyone makes that gesture for legal reasons. It's just to make
that's it. Like, that's so you can sleep at night if the kid actually falls down and brains himself. Just be like, oh, I tried, man. I wish I was more physically fit. I wish I was Batman. He would have stopped that kid. Oh, well, time to sleep.
Personally, I just find it's fascinating that in a post-Arkham game world, we've all just become weirdly acclimated to Batman occasionally pulling out syringes of goo that he injects into himself to hurt people more. That's a wrinkle we've all gotten used to really fast.
Yeah. What did you guys think about the idea that was actually Venom? I've heard a lot of people say, oh, he's injecting Venom.
People think that's Venom. It's adrenaline, you fucking morons.
It didn't occur to me that it was Venom in theaters, but they're like, I was in a green vial. I'm like,
It's a cool idea, but I think it's just supposed to be adrenaline, and it's green because comic books.
This makes a lot of sense to me. I'm on your side.
I'm on my side, too.
Yeah.
We should... Oh, is the episode started?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Anyways, welcome to Box Office Pulp, your one-stop podcast for movies, madness, and moxie. Tonight, we've got a bop focused on, you guessed it, the Batman. Unlike the Batman, this is going to be over really fast if we just keep diving into things halfway through. Oh well. Jamie, could you start us off by singing an even sadder version of Something in the Way?
Underneath the bridge.
No, that sounds more hopeful.
Has sprung a leak. It's okay to eat fish, because they don't have any semen. I may have gotten that wrong.
Yeah, I think small typo there.
But maybe still correct. Jamie's rendition was like a sad version of Something in the Way, but it's like a sad version of a Talking Heads cover.
I was thinking like in a kid's show where the kid has to sing to himself to gain courage, and they end up singing the song very sad. Like it's a sad cover of their own happy tune.
Yeah, you sing that, you clap, and Tinkerbell comes back to life. It's a whole fucking thing.
If Jamie sings this song 3 times in a row, Robert Pattinson will gain his wings.
Aw.
It's beautiful. So, spoilers for the Batman. I think we've already ruined some things if you heard us talking about Bat cocaine.
Peter Sarsgaard exploded.
Boom! Dead man walking. I don't think it's a surprise here. We're all pretty big Batman fans. We all really enjoyed the new Batman. Well, I'm speaking for you, Jamie. I'm assuming you liked it. I'm speaking for you, Mike. I assume you liked it, unless you've been lying to me for like the last 2 weeks.
Don't you speak for me, you son of a bitch. I mean, you're correct.
I'll keep doing it. You'll never take me alive.
Assuming makes an ass out of you and me.
Well, cool. I got you at the same time.
Oh.
It's a Pyrrhic victory.
Oh, fuck me.
But anyways, absolutely love the Batman. I was a little nervous going in just for the runtime's sake. Like, man, you got to kind of prove it when it's that long.
Ooh, yeah.
but I loved what they did. Another question you'll always get from people that are skeptical about a new superhero film is, why do we need to see this again? Because we've had, pretty much a nonstop amount of Batman since '89. But I would say they've taken the idea of kind of drowning things in realism that you saw in the Nolan films, while pumping that up with a little bit of a throwback flair. It definitely has an older time kind of noir aspect to it, like a neo-noir, not like 40s noir. And it's focused primarily on being a detective story. There is a lot of action to it, but it's a different formula than what we're used to with Batman, especially looking at like the last two Batman films from the Snyderverse. So I was really into what was being put down. I thought this was a good way to change things up in the Batman universe while not straying too far away from what we always want to see when it's Batman.
Yeah. Not to say like, oh, I wasn't just deathly excited for some motherfucking Batman, but yeah, I mean, when the news first hit that it wasn't going to be just a continuation of Affleck's Batman recast or not, it was a little bit exhausting just from the aspect of, oh, are we going down the ultra realism route again? Are we dealing with yet another reboot? It's kind of blowing your eyes.
How many
the same
times
way.
do we have to see Martha and the other guy, the other Wayne, die?
Yeah, it's like, can we be a little bit further down the track? But it's Reeves, so you kind of just roll with it. And then the Pattinson casting.
Well, that's a lot of benefit of the doubt. Like, everyone involved is so talented. You go, oh, this will turn out well.
Yeah, and really just throughout the entire marketing process, but just watching the final movie, there is definitely nothing that has touched it as far as the way it's made, the style, the way they approach the material. I mean, you can draw comparisons between, Burton's Batman and Nolan's if you want, or Nolan's and Snyder's, and each one is a completely different flavor of Batman in of itself, but it still feels wholly Batman. And
that's the funny thing to me, though. Everyone,
Batman,
fanboys will always look at Batmans, and even if they're apples and oranges, they'll be like, they're both Batman in different ways. One has to be better than the other, and they'll fight over it.
We have to compare Adam West and Val Kilmer for some reason.
For some reason, you can't just say, I really enjoy most of the Batman films. You can't be a fan of Batman 66 and Batman 89 or Batman Returns or Batman Forever and this Batman and the Nolan Batman. It's like you have to pick one, or else there's something wrong with it.
It has to be specific.
There's one winner and the rest are losers. It's very weird.
But
that mindset people get into about it.
Yeah, but that's what's great about like pretty much the entire series, even if it ebbs and flows in quality. They're all so different. You can look at as completely different beasts. But a lot of them do have just basic crossover because they're stemming from the same comic book influences, essentially. Right. And even though this is hitting the same comic book influences as The Dark Knight, it's arguably, I think, something that is more all-encompassing of a Batman that's never been touched on film before, both from a time period in his life, the approach to the character, that reminds me more of the animated series than anything else, if I were to take anything. And then very, like, even when we do origin Batman, it's never feels like a kind of loose canon Batman. Nolan's Batman Begins was still very year one, and Miller's early Batman was learning, but he still had his shit together. He was laser sharp. And this is something that it's more akin to both in style and substance of these between arcs. Like yeah, we're looking at the Long Halloween, but there's a lot of just individual stories instead of just going back to the Dark Knight Returns or Batman Year One or Frank Miller and stuff over and over and over again. There's a lot more Loeb. There's a little bit more Denny O'Neil in there, but also just a large, wide swath, especially of modern, and going purposely for different looks. Gotham it has a little bit of Gothicism in it, but very little. It has an antiquated look, but also grungy and grimy, in that those splashes of neon that remind me a little bit of like the Arkham City games, and that design, a little bit of like Jim Lee's Gotham cityscape, which I've always really liked, and I think is a really underrated Gotham look.
It feels the look feels more big town to me than what we'd maybe gotten in some of the Nolan stuff. Nolan took real cities, which is the ironic part, but it feels more like when Nolan was filming, he did a lot of stuff where it's like, hey, look at the skyscrapes, look at the outline of the city, and it was a lot of Chicago. Whereas this, I like the parts around like the Iceberg Lounge, that kind of like overcrowded city areas where you're kind of having no ability to see the sky because there's like an elevated train in the way and there's skyscrapers that go up 10 stories all around it. I like that
It's
almost
very
claustrophobia
the
you
way
get with
Anton
those.
first. It's very like the way Anton first went about it, or just the city that is seemingly just built on top of itself, built on top of itself, built on top of itself. It just run down like you can smell Gotham.
What does Gotham smell like to you, Jamie? If you were to put a smell on Gotham.
Like the musk that wafts off of the National Mall in DC. Just something that has not been washed out in a very long time, and everyone has just stopped smelling it at this point.
This sounds like one of those custom colognes that I would never want to order, but it would be interesting to have in my bathroom.
Well, there's so much environmental storytelling done through the locations in this movie. It's very interesting walking out of the theater and knowing everything you know about Gotham by the end and seeing, man, every single environment communicated that this is a city that on the surface has been pretending to be renovated for a very long time while corruption has completely pilfered all the money that was meant to be spent on that. So there's this slight thin veneer of Gotham. It's getting better, but it's just the world's most polished turd. Like, I love the bullshit Times Square section of Gotham you briefly see,
Yes.
which is like a nightmare version of Giuliani's Times Square, where you have all the TVs and all the light and all the money there, but it is still very clearly a version of Times Square that is falling apart. And that's something I've never seen in a particular Gotham before. That tells the story of the corruption in Gotham more than any conspiracy plot line could. There is so much environmental storytelling here and so much geography. Like, the first thing that popped into my head walking out of the movie into the parking lot was, for the first time in any piece of Batman media besides the games, I feel like I actually kind of know my way around Gotham. Like, I understand where things are in relation to each other. There's, like, you spend so much time in the bridge area surrounding the Iceberg Lounge that you feel like you're a local by the end of the movie. And that's something we've never gotten from Gotham. Gotham, even Anton First's Gotham, is very much like a disconnected series of locations that are aesthetically linked. This Gotham is an actual city.
The funniest thing that surprises me, like the weirdest, stupid little detail to pick up on, is when Gil Colson leaves the Iceberg Lounge, he has his like SUV parked front, like right in front of the building, like in a special spot underneath the bridge, which is one of those things, like having lived in larger cities, the ability to get good parking anywhere near your event without having to pay for like a valet and a lot of, razzmatazz around it shows like, oh man, the corruption. This guy's got so much power. He has good parking.
And it's hidden parking because he doesn't want onlookers to know he's there.
Yeah, it's his own vehicle, which is hilarious. Like, you think someone keep tabs on that? I don't know. Maybe he's got a separate vehicle just for making drug trips downtown. But it just cracks me up because, like, everything you need to know about that character. Like, he's supposed to be the DA standing up for what's right, and instead he spends his time at that place and drives home drunk, essentially. But he's got really good parking, which all the the commoners and plebs could never dream of having. Who knows where Bruce Wayne's parking his motorcycle, but it's not anywhere within like 2 blocks. He's got to park that fucker, pay for parking, renew the app every 2 hours.
A brief tangent. I'd completely forgotten that Skarsgård was in this movie, and until the credits, I thought that was Corey Stoll.
It's the
They
ball
look very
thing.
similar these days. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally spaced that he was in the movie until I saw it. I want to actually use this to transition into talking about the actors, because there's so much to say there. But Skarsgård has, I would say, an interesting character because, obviously the guy's kind of scummy. The Riddler blows him up for a reason. But you don't get the sense that he's pure evil, like the kind of guy who needs to have his hands crushed by Batman.
He's pathetic.
He seems just, pathetic is really it. Which is interesting, because in a lot of these guys, hey, money is easy, and I don't have enough spine to stand up and say no. So I'm going to take the easy route and enjoy it. Which is a nice way of doing politicians, because I think a lot of it is for show, just kind of have that easy life. Or there's a lot of people who would be very tempted by, $10,000 a year in extra money just to fuck around and kind of be a louse.
Yeah, there's
So
a
I
lot
thought
of
that was an
shades
interesting
of
way to
corruption.
take that character. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like there's some that are more like overtly greedy or overtly evil, and some that are a little more wish-washy. I mean, the way they even describe Thomas is like super where, yeah, his hands are a little dirty, but he wasn't a bad person, but he still did these things. Like there's so
Well, it
many
depends on who you
different, like,
talk to, I
sliding
think.
scale.
Everyone gives a little bit different version of Thomas Wayne, it feels like. Which is
Yeah.
fine because we don't actually have a flashback to show us what he's like. So it's okay. I mean, we're in Bruce Wayne's position, right? He only knows his father through the stories other people tells.
It just plays into the theme of unanswered questions, and it adds to Bruce's overall naivete of how crime works and what corruption is exactly. Like, I love how much Bruce just doesn't really know anything.
Yeah, well, okay, let's jump to Batman. It feels like this version of Batman
We're going to be
is
all
doing-
over the place, folks.
Oh, I try to give it some structure by going off a cast, and I realized the cast is really cool, and there's a lot of areas to talk about. But with this version of Bruce Wayne Batman, I like that it starts. There's a bit of an arc for Batman where he's conducting this as an experiment, right? The end goal is he wants to rid Gotham of crime, which he believes he can pretty much do by just beating the shit out of it. And if he scares enough people, crime will go away. And 2 years into this experiment, he realizes it's not working, which gives us a really interesting arc for Batman, where, typically learns a thing or two by the end of the movie. But this one, it's him self-realizing what he needs to be and what he needs to stand for. So he's developing the concept of Batman along with the audience. I thought that was a really neat way to do that. The idea that you go from Batman being almost a slasher villain at the start, where people are just terrified he's anywhere in the darkness, to literally being seen as like a ray of hope. He's filmed in the morning as the sun's coming up. People don't want to let go of his hand because he's a savior. And Bruce realizing that's what I need to do. That's what I got to be for the city.
Batman describes himself as a living shadow in the opening scenes and ends the movie holding a fucking torch and leading people into the daylight. That is so
Lights up the darkness.
beautiful.
And it's an arc you don't quite, until that one Riddler goon says, "I'm vengeance," you haven't quite put the puzzle pieces together of the arc you're watching exactly. Like, you see the arc Bruce is going through, but how it all completely fits together, the true meaning of it all hasn't quite clicked. And when he says that, and it's not the character repeating something he heard Batman say, it's the philosophy of the Riddler and the realization that you've gone down the wrong path, that it's all stemming from the same place. And it's honestly that's why it's one of the best uses of Riddler, because so much of Riddler is misunderstood as he's one of the characters that's part of Batman's id, the same way Joker or Two-Face is, or Scarecrow or others, that they represent facets of the character. And this really gets that and hones in on them being kind of the same, and actually makes Riddler a great origin villain, even 2 years in or whatever to Batman's career. That Bruce has just become, like Cody said, he's a slasher. He's a living shadow, just going about
when he comes out in
people.
The opening scene, set on Halloween, where the guy's being beaten up by all the thugs dressed in kind of like almost Joker makeup. When he comes out of the darkness, it just made me laugh in theaters a little bit because it reminded me so much of Inglourious Bastards. The Bear Jew. Like, there's such a build-up, he's coming, and you almost get like the sound of spurs as Batman like walks and all of his gear kind of rattles on him, and then he just comes out of the darkness and just wails on these poor motherfuckers, just absolutely destroys them.
I love the sound of Batman walking. It's so heavy, and it's like fucking RoboCop.
Well, they can turn it on and off, which is the funny thing. Like, obviously it's a cheat, but I like how he can announce that he's coming as a threat to these guys when he wants to be scary, but they still do the traditional Batman is a ninja thing when they want to and have him just disappear. Like, he can be dead silent whenever it suits him. That's not a complaint. I like that.
It becomes like a cool, unwritten, like, character thing where he can announce himself audibly if he wants to. He can do it for fear, or he can just come in silently.
Yeah, after
Batman would be the worst roommate. Do you know how many times I would freak the fuck out if just Batman decided to not make noise when he entered the apartment? I would hate that. I would be like, I would accidentally throw my pizza in the air.
He'd eat all of your food, but only at night while you're asleep.
Oh, God.
True. And he could afford his own.
Can you imagine you wake up in the middle of the night, walk into the kitchen, Bruce is there eating chicken in like a t-shirt and underwear, but still wearing the mask, you'd shit yourself.
Okay, speaking of Bruce Wayne being in your house eating your food, that'd be the worst, because this version of Bruce Wayne is like a zombie as a man, right?
He stinks.
He
does not
seems
shower.
like you would not want to socialize with Bruce Wayne at all, right? As Bruce Wayne, Pattinson can barely function. He looks like he's zoned out. He's not there. He's totally checked out. An approach a lot of people haven't liked about this Batman, but I absolutely love. I love the idea that Batman is him being alive, and he feels like when he is not masked up, he is so emotionally scarred and broken that he shouldn't be seen or noticed, and yet everyone wants to look at him. I love the flip that puts on the attention that the Riddler craves. He wants all eyes on him, and he wants to take the mask off and be seen. Bruce Wayne wants nothing more than to really disappear into the shadows. And so much so that he can't even go to a funeral and talk to people who want to help in the same way he does. He can't connect in any way. It's a really nifty approach to the psychology of this guy. You know, the running joke is, what kind of person would dress up like a bat and beat the shit out of criminals? Like, there has to be something deeper wrong with this guy than just pent up rage. And I think this is the first movie to really give that. In like 89, you get that Keaton is a weirdo and a little bit reclusive and aloof, but it's still functional. This one, it feels like Bruce Wayne is so mentally fucked that if he didn't have the ability to disappear into Batman, he would go absolutely bonkers. Like, he would just shoot himself.
I think a pleasant side effect of Matt Reeves sticking hard to exploring unexplored territory with this movie is, whether intentionally or not, he ends up exploring a lot of stuff that we've only been given lip service to in other Batman projects. And in particular, he hones in so much on the idea of Batman as a completely emotionally shut off, dead to the world human being, which is something we're often told about Batman in movies and here and there in the comics, but it never quite connects, because at the end of the day, Batman still kind of acts like a dude when he's got the mask off. This is the first time I've ever bought that Bruce Wayne has seriously not moved on from watching his parents die. He is still a 10-year-old boy who has no idea how to interact with the outside world in a way that isn't a situation where he thinks he's in charge. And I guess that's an interesting wrinkle to why he would, like you were saying earlier, why he would even wear the costume in the first place. Like, if he's walking out as Bruce Wayne, he's not in control of anything, but if he can choose his appearance, if he can choose when to strike, if he is always the alpha of the situation, then, he's safe. He's not going to be in a position where he's vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely love the line where Catwoman's kind of flirting with him, and she asks, "What's underneath the mask? Are you horribly scarred?" And fucking buzzkill Bruce Wayne goes, "Yes." Like, just dead serious. Like, as a matter of fact, yes. which plays to the character, right? I mean, without the mask on, I think he just feels so self-conscious about what he is that he does think of himself as, scarred, hideous in some way. Maybe not physically, but there's that idea that he just mentally knows he's damaged goods and he can't connect to other people. Which really leads into the most emotionally honest and beautiful scene I think we've ever seen between a Bruce Wayne and an Alfred.
Yeah.
When they're in the hospital together and they have that moment where Bruce Wayne literally admits, "I'm terrified of losing the few remaining people I have, so I just don't allow them to get close enough to hurt me." I mean, that's a huge driver for Batman. That's a good therapy session there. Good job, Bruce.
And it does, from everything you've seen from those two, and specifically from how Bruce interacts with the world, when you get to that scene, it really does feel like, oh, this is the first time they've ever had this conversation. Like Alfred has probably been trying to have this conversation since the night the Waynes were murdered. But Bruce is so shut off that could never happen. They've never talked about anything that isn't, we need to do this, we need to do that, I have to do this for the mission. They've had a purely practical relationship since that night, despite Alfred's best efforts to father him. And the fact that they end that sequence as surrogate father and son for the first time, that's one of the most beautiful things I've seen in any superhero movie.
I think the recipe to a solid emotionally good superhero film is to have somebody in a hospital bed reach their hand out to the hero. Like it works for Guardians of the Galaxy too. Take my hand, Peter. It's just like as long as you have someone messed up in a hospital bed trying to take the hand of the protagonist, the audience is going to be into it. Like, yeah, take that hand, do it. Have emotional closure. Yeah, get it.
It makes this Bruce simultaneously the least approachable and most down-to-earth Batman at the same time. Like something Pattinson said that has been rattling around in my head since seeing the movie, which is in that opening scene where you first see Bruce like enter the crime scene and interact with police officers who aren't Gordon for the first time. He's really, really, really embarrassed because the mayor has just been murdered and he's walking around in a stupid superhero costume, and he didn't realize how weird this looked outside of his own head until they were all looking at him. Which again,
this is why I could never go to a Comic-Con. Like, I'd be on the subway dressed up as like my favorite superhero, and I'd be like, I'm an asshole. What the fuck am I doing? So I really appreciate that idea for Batman even being like, the only way I'm going to get through this crime scene is if I say nothing to anyone and only scan for clues. Just look for clues. No one's judging you, Bruce. It's okay.
And you can totally see that in Pattinson's performance in those crowd scenes until like maybe he like explodes in anger or becomes a little bit more comfortable, where he looks very intimidating. He's standing there like and Reeves shoots Batman like he's 10 feet tall at all times. But there is an awkwardness, and the way he whispers isn't just to do like a Batman whisper, but he's kind of like just keeping it to himself.
Right.
He doesn't really want to interact with anybody, and not in like I'm anti-social kind of way, just uncomfortable, just being anything else but violence.
Well, we get a lot of fear out of this Batman, which is something, again, we get lip service of in all the other movies. But this one, we see Batman being afraid in a lot of scenes. Like when he gets knocked out by the explosion and he wakes up and the cops are all around him, and he immediately panics and goes into defense mode because he doesn't know if they've taken his mask off. He doesn't know if they're planning on arresting him. You can see it's a fight or flight thing. He just panics, and it's a first to see a Batman that's that concerned, who isn't underneath like the fear of the effect of fear toxin. So it's or when he jumps off the building and he has to turn out the flight
first time he ever jumped off a fucking tall building, and he's terrified when he gets up there. I love that so much.
He has a Spider-Man reaction. That was amazing.
I think it gives a lot of depth to the character that you can see a Batman who is supposed to be built on fear, right? Bats scare me. We get that concept, but now we get to actually see it a little more. Even when Batman has to reach into the bat cage, you can see the trepidation as he reaches in, which I'm associating with the fact that he's afraid of bats more so than he was worried there's some sort of bomb inside of the cage.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of silent storytelling going on in the movie.
Yeah, I like the idea that this Batman is really driven by fear a lot of the time and turns that into kind of a bravado through violence. Like, if I beat this guy up, no one can think I'm afraid.
It's I mean, that's the classic like early Batman Bruce id stuff, right? It's the little kid being able to attack Joe Chill and save his parents. It's just rage and fists. That's what's so great about when he hits the adrenaline at the end and nearly kills the guy. I mean, it's the full realization of, oh, Batman's been on the brink this entire movie. We just haven't really noticed.
Well, especially after Alfred gets hurt, you can see there's a change in the performance where he's a little bit, I don't know if angry is the right term, but scrappier about things.
Yeah.
There's a moment at the end of this movie that absolutely floored me because I've never, ever seen this in a Batman story. Not even in Year One, not even in Earth One, which untalented fuck-up Batman that from that is clearly a big influence on this. Whenever the Riddler's bombs go off and Gotham is flooded, and all Batman can do is protect AOC from that assassination attempt. You get so many shots throughout that entire sequence of Batman watching Gotham be destroyed before his eyes, and he's terrified and powerless to stop it. If that were Keaton's Batman, he would have pulled a gadget out of his ass and stopped everything from going wrong. if that were Bale's Batman, he would have been on the phone with the GCPD. He would have had 5 Batmobiles out there, and he would have stopped the city from plunging into chaos. When Batman sees Gotham flood at the end of this movie, what's going through his head is, oh, fuck. All I do is punch people. There's nothing I can do about any of this. I can't even stop the stadium from being destroyed. All I can do is prevent people from being electrocuted and lead them out. Like, there's that amazing shot where we just linger for a little while on a very defeated Batman just like jumping onto that cable before the water can be electrified, just dangling there for a moment and then cutting it and hitting the water. And I was wondering in the theater, like, they're presenting this like it's very significant, but it's just Batman doing a minor Batman thing after a crisis. And I realized this is the first time Batman saved anyone in the entire movie.
Pretty much. I mean, the rest are he's maybe stopping someone from being killed, like the Falcone situation. But this is like direct saving. This is directly like, I'm here not to beat people up. I'm here to actually like
also a
stop
bit of a
someone from getting
self-sacrifice
crushed.
moment because he doesn't know whether or not this is about to kill him. And that's why it's so great. He rises out of the water. It's a total like rebirth moment. And that's when he lights up that fucking flare. And that is such great storytelling and leading to that, morning breaking. And he gives the just the tiniest smile to that kid, like truly giving to his younger self what he always wanted, what he always needed in that moment when his parents died. And it's such like a brilliant, this is the kind of word like, that's Batman. Like, that is Batman right there. But it's also giving such a brilliant origin to Batman without actually going into his origin. Like, that's what we kind of want out of it. We don't just want to see his parents die and then I will avenge them. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't want like the bulletin points version of Batman's origin. I want the emotional.
I don't see
like,
pearls falling in slow motion. I get angry, Mike. Martha. So one thing, I want to get away from Batman just because we could spend weeks talking about this, and I want to talk about some of the other actors. A point I want to clarify though, because I've been confused about this since I left the theater, and I don't have the ability to rewind the movie yet and check out cast listings. The last Riddler thug that gets taken out and says, "I am vengeance." Was that the same man who was at the funeral that was talking to Bruce Wayne?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
I thought that
actually,
was
I
the
didn't catch
case.
that.
Yeah, I thought that was the case, but I didn't see a lot of people mention the two connected. So I was like, am I making shit up here? Is this headcanon?
I haven't seen people mention it very much, but yeah, it was the same guy.
Yeah, like that would make the most sense. And that's part of why Batman's so shocked too. Because like, oh, I saw that guy before and I saw he's hurting and I couldn't do anything for him. And he became this. So anyways, that's an aside. I'm glad they threw that in there. I'm glad I was paying enough attention to notice it.
Yeah, but it's a true birthing of Batman as something more, that Bruce can do more than just fucking punch some motherfuckers.
Well, and part of that too is him rescuing the politician who wants him to put his money to use and actually do good things for the city.
Yeah, I love that there's a moment where somebody approaches Bruce Wayne and says, "You're the richest man in town and you use your money for nothing. That's wrong." Because you don't get the impression that that Batman is a multi-billion-dollar operation in this film. He is sitting on the majority of that money. Because
there's probably, those contacts got to be expensive, but still, right. There's the idea that there should be billions of dollars in a fund somewhere that he just doesn't do anything with.
Yeah, this movie is very, very self-aware of all of the Batman discourse that's gone around in the past 10 or 15 years without ever really putting too fine of a point on it.
Yeah. Okay. I want to move on though from Batman. I swear to God, it's going to happen.
No.
Can we talk about Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman? Because I've read all the Batman stuff and I've never been that interested in Catwoman, to be honest. I feel like it's the same couple of stories played over and over again of the will they, won't they love angle. But this version of the character made me care much more about Catwoman than I ever have before reading the comics. Like, I think she's great at giving these glances at Bruce Wayne and kind of teasing him, but also having her own story where it's like, hey, if I'm not getting help from Batman, fuck it, I'll do it myself.
Yeah, she is very Ed Brubaker, Robin Hood, Catwoman in this, which I was absolutely delighted to see because that was one of my favorite comic runs of all time.
And there's an air of mystery too, where we're unsure at points, like Batman is, if she's kind of exploiting Batman to get closer to Falcone for other reasons, or if she actually even feels bad about her roommate friend, whatever the situation was there, disappearing. And there's just kind of that level of, is she playing him? And the motives I think are more pure at the end than they appear. But I like that level of mystery and playfulness that's involved with the character. Like, you can never be 100% sure exactly what she is aiming for.
Yeah, it's very Hush in that regard. To bring up another 2000s comic run. Yeah, I'm with you. I normally get very bored with Catwoman whenever she's presented like exclusively in the context of her relationship with Bruce, because those are very circular stories, and you can only do that so much. While I do feel like a flaw of this movie, one of the few, is they hit the gas on the relationship a bit too much too soon.
Shouldn't have kissed. That was the only thing I would act in the movie.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hold on, though. We do have a Batman movie that feels a little steamy for once here.
I know.
Like, just like the
horniest fuck scene. We all love it. We're all going to watch it over and over again and do things to ourselves. That's not the point. It's for the movie. They can release it separately for us.
What a weird bonus feature. Just fucking Robert Pattinson kissing various members of the crew to see if you get off.
I'm down.
But it's a fine special feature. No, it's included. But what I'm saying is, like, there's, and I like this too. This is interesting because we have Bruce Wayne in his like kind of hobo gear watching her from across the street, like with binoculars, and it gets past the point where he needs to watch her. Like, she's stripping down and he's still just staring like he's a goddamn villain in a De Palma film.
I love how objectively creepy Bruce is in that scene.
Right?
Like, there's nothing playful about it at all. He's being a bad person in that moment.
Yeah, you keep expecting to put the...
Because, I mean, look what we open the movie on. Riddler voyeuristically watching a victim.
Yeah.
Bruce says the same exact thing. Like, there's...
so that's what they should have done differently. When the Riddler gets his Ave Maria right before he murders people, Batman should have had Nirvana playing quietly in the background as he like fought the urge to masturbate while he
just humming it slowly to himself.
Something, baby. It's one of those things because you keep expecting though to put those binoculars down and to stop being a fucking creep, and yet he keeps going, like just long enough to make it uncomfortable, but not long enough where you're like, I'm reconsidering if I think the Batman's any good in any capacity. And there's scenes together too, like the playfulness between them. There's real chemistry here. Something we haven't gotten maybe since, I would say, Batman Returns.
Yeah, it was a big relief to see a Batwoman and God, I wish this was Batwoman and Catwoman. That would have been much of an interesting movie.
Well.
It's great to see it's great to see a Bruce and Selina relationship that is based almost entirely on playful flirting. Like, I think my favorite interaction between them in the entire movie is the end, where they just kind of somehow flirt through their motorcycles as they pull off in separate direction.
I will say that is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful shot of, Selina Kyle going into the sunset and vanishing out of his rearview mirror. It's really good, but the only thing I'd complain about in the movie is the back half feels like it's got Return of the King syndrome, where they just can't end it because there's so many little things they still want to show us. Some of them are important. Some of them need to stay. Some of them, like that moment, as much as I love it, I maybe would trim that scene down to just her disappearing and cut some of the dialogue before that. It's good stuff, but it does feel like it drags the movie on longer than need be. In theaters, that gets to be a little overwhelming. Sitting with it, it's not so
I could
bad.
See that.
Sitting in my head, I think, oh yeah, that's a really cool scene, and you don't have the same experience of having to wait 180 minutes to get to it.
Might be a different experience at home. I understand people's complaints with that, but I also felt like a lot of, at least for me, a lot of the Coda stuff was properly earned. I like kind of going into a soft landing after the like huge emotional crescendo of the third act.
Yeah.
Like, so everything after like the morning break scene on the rooftop of the stadium feels, I would like to be let down from the film that way instead of, a quicker cutoff.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who like I think I'm in the minority that I actually really like 4-act movies. I really like long epilogues where we get to say goodbye to characters. Like I love movies
Yeah,
that
I
have
love
a
saying goodbye.
novelistic approach. I love to just sit down I love to sit down and just watch a movie like Inherent Vice, where you just exist in a world for 3.5 hours. I
I'm
would
okay
say,
with that when you know it's a movie that will most likely never get a sequel, so this is the end of your time with that character. With something like a Batman or a Spider-Man, you're like, I can almost guarantee in 2 years we'll have another one. We don't need to have like a super extended wrap up, but that's just me.
my only complaint as far as the runtime goes is I feel it has a little bit of Hateful Eight syndrome, where none of the scenes need to be cut out, but there's just a lot of air in some scenes that needs to be shortened. But even
Yeah,
that,
like
I would say, is only like a margin of
really-
like 5 minutes or so.
how did everyone feel about the Joker scene? Because I would have completely chopped that. I would have cut that right out of the movie, and I think we would have been fine.
I liked it. It's fun.
I liked it a lot. I understand, like, I'm really fascinated by Matt Reeves' justification for that, which is that was originally cut whenever they cut the longer Joker scene earlier in the movie. But in watching it with test audiences, he kept thinking, I don't think the audience really buys whenever Selina says Gotham will never change. Like, that feels like lip service. And even with like the whole No Man's Land setup and the rise of the Penguin, he didn't think that there was enough of a bullet point that no, seriously, this is just going to become the Batman universe. And keeping in that Coda was kind of his nod to that, which was kind of the impression like I got walking away. Like, I know for a fact Matt Reeves is not going to make the Joker the villain of the next movie. Like, it was nice knowing that beforehand, that was not something he was going to pursue. It felt very appropriate to the universe, and it felt like that was an interesting epilogue for Riddler. Like,
It's focused on the Riddler, the scene itself, so
Yeah,
I
'cause
think
it's-
that's one of the reasons it works.
yeah, it's such a great final statement on the Riddler too. It makes it clear that he's not defeated. He will come back bigger and better. Whether or not we see that or not is up in the air, but things are not done between the Joker and Batman. And it sums up the most basic thing about any version of Edward, which is he has absolutely no self-esteem that comes from within. But if just one singular person tells him he's awesome, he can use that to fuel his ego. Because he is an entirely
Yeah, it's the Riddler meeting the
intention-based
devil
character.
at the end. Like the way Joker's shot is he's the devil. Like, because for the most part, Riddler kind of won. I mean,
Yeah.
not completely, but he still mostly won. But to Edward, it didn't go 100%, so he lost. It's either 100% or he's just not good enough and no one knows who he is and it's all ruined now. And then Satan pops up and says, no, you can do so much more. And that's what I like about it. Joker is serving a purpose to the villain of the movie you just watched. It's a nice ending for that, and also a nice a little bit of a tease of the greater world. The world's going to keep going. There's a little bit something there. I'm glad there's not an earlier scene with the Joker.
That would have been a big mistake.
I mean, the idea is cool, but that would have just been you can't just like introduce a new Batman and a new Joker in the same movie and then not have the movie kind of focus on them. It just doesn't, or at least not to a greater extent. You can't just do that in a cameo. But I also like
somebody at WB would
mystery
just,
of that.
an executive at WB would explode if you introduced the Joker but didn't make him like a main part of the movie. Like
Exactly.
he would just spontaneously combust in his office while writing a very angry note. Like, why are you doing this to me?
But here's,
As
I
long
think,
as
one of
we're-
the greatest compliments you can give the movie itself, which is this is a Batman movie that has one of the last scenes teases the Joker in a scene in Arkham Asylum where he's talking to the Riddler, and he's also played by an actual actor who was just in a fucking Marvel movie. And no one's really talking about it because the rest of the movie is so interesting.
This does seem like a good segue into talking about the Riddler. One, I was interested when they cast Paul Dano as the Riddler, because, like, dear God, finally, the world's most punchable face will meet the most punching fist.
I
It's-
know. Okay, can I just say a
it's
complaint
a
real
magnet.
quick
He's
before
gonna
you
get it. He's
continue?
gonna get it. Yeah.
Look, the minute we all saw Paul Dano in There Will Be Blood, because let's face it, that's where we all first saw him.
Some people
thought
probably
this
saw him in
is a
Little Miss
man.
Sunshine.
Oh yeah, that one too. But this is
He
a
was the nerdy
man
friend and the
who
girl
has been
next door.
put.
Yeah, Mike,
put
get your shit
upon-
together.
The first time we ever noticed Paul Dano, let me rephrase that. This is a man who was put upon this planet Earth, in this cosmos, to get the shit beat out of him by Batman. And I'm a little bit bitter that he was. It's like
We got blue
it's
ball.
like Reeves knew. Yeah, it's like he put him behind glass, so it's like, no, that way you can be with the rage of Batman not being able to punch him.
I will say, for once, we got a plan where the main villain was arrested, but it wasn't so he could like get a key out of the fucking commissioner's
I
office and
was
escape
so happy
again.
about that.
Like, tee all part of the plan, Batman. Which it was, but his plan was, I'm going to be arrested. See ya. Okay. You can sit in prison. This works.
I get 2 hots in a cot.
I love how it's not even entirely clear if that really was part of Edward's plan, or he just skedaddled to a diner where he didn't think they'd find him.
Could go either way. I like the version of this Riddler of having a series of contingency plans like Batman. Like, he's almost more prep time than this Batman is, which I really like. It's like Batman learning prep time from the Riddler. It's like he kind of just rolls with anything that happens.
Well, there's an attention to detail with his murder scenes too, right? Because we have Batman screwing one up because he translates the Spanish wrong. Then there's the moment that he realizes,
honestly.
yeah, and then there's the moment where he realizes, like, oh, I should have been paying attention to the murder weapon, which was very unusual. We probably should have thought there was a reasoning behind that instead of just like he picked the most weird ass random striking object possible. And then at that point, Batman figures out, oh, here's the last clue. It was hidden underneath the carpet. Stuff like that. Like, okay, if you're going to have a detective story about the world's greatest detective, he's got to be on his game. And they make a Batman who is very impressive as deduction skills, but still clearly flawed, and a Riddler that's able to out-riddle him, which is fantastic. Riddler is a tough character to pull off if you're not giving him weird ass, like, 66 energy or Jim Carrey energy. Because the idea of a man who just asks confusing questions is tiresome on itself. And nowadays, with everyone having basically access to every question that's ever been asked, a straight up riddle doesn't even work. So this version gets some new twists and turns, where he's mostly the Zodiac. Like, he's so confusing and up in his own mind that the way he talks and communicates truly only makes sense to him or people that are attuned to the insane thoughts that he's having.
Which is so, like, I'm fascinated how that's both a commentary on a lot of shit that's going on in the world today, and it's also just a natural progression of what the Riddler's been going through in the past decade of comics, from Paul Dini turning him into a sociopathic detective that can solve cases right alongside Batman, to Scott Snyder's revamping of him into an information broker who's obsessed with all the dirty secrets of Gotham City. This is just such a perfect distillation of all that. This is such a good evolution of that character.
Well, and the little wrinkle that this version of the Riddler is desperate for attention, so he's driven by a small amount of online fame. My God, he's got 500 followers.
Hey guys.
Hearing the Riddler say, "I couldn't have done any of this without the community you guys give me," is the most Riddler thing in the world.
Oh god, that was such a brilliant turn.
And that's the coolest like wrinkle in the concept of henchmen I've seen in years. Like, no, in today's world, if a villain needed henchmen, he'd just get his Twitter followers to kill somebody.
Right, just whip him up to a frenzy. Here, put on these masks. So at first, it did crack me up in the theater where they're like, he has 500 followers and acting like it's a big deal. He's like, motherfucker, I think I have 300, or not 300, but close to it on Twitter, and I'm nobody. Like, I leave a comment, I'll maybe get like 2 of my friends to say something. Riddler can't have that high of engagement. But it's just the idea in Riddler's mind, you know, having 500 people tell him like how fucking great you are and are willing to go murder innocent civilians. Yeah, he's got his own cult that's supercharged, and he only needs that small community. He doesn't need thousands of followers to make it realistic.
Yeah, I love how that's a number that you laugh at, and then like 15 minutes later, you realize that is a terrifying amount of people who have guns and will do anything Riddler says. That flips so quickly.
Raiding the Capitol.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by Joker, the film Joker, and Riddler in this play on a lot of the same prescient themes. I don't know, like from just a standpoint, it's interesting that Batman media has stumbled upon to comment on this specifically in such a like pinpointed way, and with Joker, it's like it's a cautionary tale of how these things can happen, and with Riddler, it's focused on Batman's reaction of not doing enough and causing it to happen. But I'm just curious as to like how Batman media of all things, and just kind of inadvertently, these two have these thematic crossovers with one another.
I don't know. I didn't see any ties to what's happening in current life whatsoever.
There was none. There was absolutely none.
No commentary. Nothing about QAnon. Nothing. None of that was there.
It was absolutely, positively a 100% fantasy world.
One, I would like to say it is very unusual because in this version, apparently the Pied Piper Trump-like leader of this cult is funny enough to make jokes like thumb drive. And in the real world, we don't get that. They're just shitty people.
It was a good joke. The thumb drive was a really good joke. I love how Riddler was still kind of silly.
Silly, but like after having murdered a man with a claw hammer and then tearing his thumb off while he's alive.
But that's what the great thing, like when Riddler is serious Riddler in the comics, which is most of the time, he hasn't been fucking like pajama wearing Riddler, I don't know, since the 60s. But he's still like kind of jokey and he's a little bit silly because he's just off kilter. Like he's just on a different level. And I love how this really does capture that, where he's aware he's being funny. Like he's not just a goofball. He's having fun with like his sociopathy.
Having a good time. I want to use that as a transition though, because Jeffrey Wright's reaction to the thumb drive joke.
So fucking done.
Wonderful.
God.
My God. Just like, man, come on. We've gotten a lot of Gordons over the years. I mean, there's always a Gordon when there's a new Batman, right? But most of the Gordons feel of a kind. This one, I like that he has that kind of put upon reaction to thing, like, oh Christ, okay. And just the informal language of him just like seeing Batman at the crime scene and going, oh man, what are you doing?
I love how much this Gordon says man.
It's a guy who's just accepted that his whole life is fucking insane nightmare territory, and he's just like, I gotta punch in and do my job anyways as best I can. Oh, Christ.
I am obsessed with the choice to make this Jim Gordon the most banal, smaller-than-life Jim Gordon we've ever seen, which makes him infinitely more interesting and accidentally heroic than the other Gordon. Like
Jeffrey Wright has just been stringing together so many amazing performances over the years, and it's kind of his calling card, right? Like he has an incredibly important character who might like influence the fate of mankind, but he plays it in this kind of beaten down, low-key manner, like kind of quietly frustrated. And it's not showy acting most of the time, but it's stuff I love. Like he's quiet and assured in what he's doing, and it's always a spectacular performance.
I remember the lead up to the movie, Wright saying what was going through his head when he was playing Gordon was, Jim isn't a good man. He's an okay man, but he really, really wishes he was a good man. Which, that is Jim Gordon to a T. That is a normal person who stands shoulder to shoulder with larger-than-life characters and doesn't necessarily want to be them, but he just wants to be a little bit more than what he is. And where he succeeds and fails, and that is the drama of Jim Gordon. And this is the first movie that's ever like actually honed in on that.
Yeah.
I do love, I would love personally if, considering how Gotham made us wait until the end of the series to see Gordon earn his mustache for a scene. I would love if, however many movies Matt Reeves makes, like the final scene is Jeffrey Wright walking out of a bathroom after having just washed his hair, which is now fully white with a little spit curl. He's finally Commissioner Gordon.
I like the idea if he steps out of the shower like this, the fog clears up, he wipes the mirror clean, starts shaving, and then he goes to cut the mustache off and hesitates. And his eyes flick up and he looks himself in the face. Credits! And you know he put the shaver down. He didn't cut the mustache.
It's like the
Commissioner
ending of
Gordon
Inception.
rises. Is the mustache shaved or not? That's what everyone debates for the next 6 years.
Done. The Hans Zimmer score fucking blares.
I want to talk about scores, but we have a couple more actors to get through, so we'll get back to that. I promise. Let's just.
Can we talk about Colin Farrell now?
Let's go. Yeah, Colin Farrell. We have to talk about the Penguin. At first, I was thrown off by this choice because why would you bother taking an actor and putting him under that many prosthetics just kind of dirty him up? Why not just hire a character actor who's, already pretty stocky or balding? And in the end, that makeup is so fantastic you don't even realize it's Colin Farrell in like fat mobster drag. And he is quietly probably the funniest part of the movie. Like he provides not quite comic relief, but the closest thing the movie would give you to comic relief.
Playing a version of the Penguin who is simultaneously an absolute disreputable piece of shit who you can buy doing just about anything to save his own ass, but is also more human and engaging than any of the criminals who are above him. Like, there's a weird almost sense of old school criminal honor that the Penguin exudes. Like, you can tell that's a dude who's been pushed around his entire life and has scraped and crawled his way through the criminal underworld to just be a lapdog for older, less ambitious criminals. And you can see that rage and resentment in every scene with that character, which is such an interesting way to play the Penguin's thirst for a spot in high society, which has always been kind of a running thing with the Penguin. It's been interpreted in so many different ways. I love that is played, I guess, something that relates specifically to his life of crime in this. Like, the moment when he looks at Falcone, like, as he's being perp-walked out, and is disgusted that he ratted to the cops. Like, that is so against the code of the old school gangster. Like,
and as slimy as he is, that's the one thing he wouldn't do. He would, he's fine with graft and bribery and breaking bones and lying, but to be a narc, come on.
Even though he did kind of happily get Batman information earlier in the movie.
Yeah. But also to really laugh.
Penguin thing in the world.
Yeah, it's do as I say, not as I do. The Penguin having to waddle after being left behind after the Batman gets the information he needs from him.
Oh, that's so good.
Just a stupid little callback to the idea that this is the Penguin, even though he's already in the Iceberg Lounge. It's so silly, but I laughed anyways.
I'm so happy we've reached a point where you can just introduce the Penguin as the Penguin and not explain why he's called the Penguin, and everyone just calls him the Penguin.
He's got a funny nose and he's kind of short. There we go, Penguin. Although we didn't get to see him with an umbrella, and considering how much it rains in Gotham City, it seems like a huge misstep.
I would have assumed he would have been the one with the umbrella, but he seemed okay with the Fincher rain.
Yeah. So one thing I was blown away by, I was fascinated to hear Matt Reeves talk about that, because apparently they actually filmed that to get his reaction in real time with the explosion. I assumed they would have just filmed him as a separate element and then just composited him into the explosion as one less thing.
Oh.
And they had it figured out. The cinematographer figured out a way where they could have the camera position to capture the explosion and Colin Farrell like doing his "I got you" moment all like at the same time. And they only got a couple of cracks at it, I think, because the setup was so long to do and so complicated.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
That's why he's screaming so loud, because Reeves had to take him aside and say, "We're only doing this twice, so you have to go in at 11 immediately, and if it's too much, then we'll take it down for the next take." And that first take is what's in the movie.
Which, that's just bananas, isn't it? Like, my God, to imagine acting under those conditions. One, you're covered in so much latex and makeup, where it's got to be tough to know if you're emoting properly or if things are coming across almost invisible because they're masked that way. and to the pressure of it. Like, you got to nail this or you've wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars. Dear God, I don't know if I can handle that kind of strain. I'd fuck it up.
And how does Colin Farrell still look good in a suit when he's wearing a fat suit? Anybody know that? How's that?
It's just how
Hollywood
he-
magic.
It's the air he exudes. That bullseye.
It's that old Grindelwald magic.
Why wasn't he Grindelwald?
We all ask it. We got Mads now. If I bother seeing the third one, I'm sure that'll be an improvement.
Yeah, well,
The movies look they have
we don't
no
need
interest in
double
making
dust.
Grindelwald interesting. We're not going to review Harry Potter shit. Let's move on.
I just want to say that we got that trailer before the Batman, and since neither of us had followed the project at all, my girlfriend and I had a moment of looking to each other and mouthing, "They made Mads Grindelwald? When did that happen?"
It was a pretty quiet announcement. Why not? God damn it, I said I'm not talking about Harry Potter. There's
we're moving on.
two things I want to talk about, and we gotta move quick here. One, the score. Let's talk about Michael Giacchino's score. My God, what a beautiful piece of music. Batman's theme that kind of bridges into Something in the Way. Woo! Chills.
How is Giacchino so fucking good?
How
It's
is he so
amazing.
flexible?
I'm more impressed by the fact that
He
we've
can do
gotten
fucking
so many
anything.
iconic Batman themes throughout the years. How do you crank out another one? Like, people have to know all the tricks and all the usual stuff you'd expect for a scary guy who dresses like a lunatic and beats people up. I don't know how, like,
And this
we
gets
managed to
back
do the Elfman theme, which is amazing, and then you've got, like, the animated series version of the theme, which is, I mean, probably, like, the default one in my mind. The Batman, the Nolan version of the score, all very different, and I don't know how we keep cranking out wonderful Batman themes. I don't know how these guys do it. They're
They
amazing.
all have great fucking themes. I mean, even the Goldsmith theme is fucking banging. But fuck, I think what's great is Giacchino brings back something that's been missing from superhero movies. With all of the scores for superhero movies he's done, but it feels like specifically with Batman, which seems most appropriate, the march. It's not just a theme; it's a march that you're gonna
Yeah.
hum when you leave the theater.
Well, it's a little percussive in spots too, which I think really works for this type of movie that has that driving, beating mystery underneath it.
I'm fascinated too by just how much of a classical Batman sound this score has by sheer virtue of Michael Giacchino just naturally being Elfman-like in how he composes. Like, I'm obsessed with the
Yeah.
fact that every time Selena shows up, suddenly strings enter the score, and it's Batman.
Yeah.
It's Batman Returns for a minute.
I was so impressed. It's hard in these days and age to find a superhero score I would listen to as I drove around town. Maybe like Thor Ragnarok had the kind of cool moments from Mark Mothersbaugh, but overall, a lot of the Marvel themes I just kind of forget about, or you maybe have one theme that kind of stands out. This whole thing, it's like 2 hours of score he composed for this. It's amazing. It's all catchy. It's beautiful. I am completely stunned by the soundtrack.
You can listen to it all in one go, and it all flows together beautifully.
Yeah, I'm
Even the Riddler
fascinated.
score is great.
Which I didn't even realize until listening to it by itself earlier today, is a reworked, distorted version of Ave Maria.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, I've listened to that score several times since watching the movie. Today's the first time I've noticed that, because it's actually very subtle. You really have to be listening for it.
Oh, that's really cool. Oh, damn.
Not to mention, the thing I was not expecting is the entire ad campaign since pretty much the DC Fandom teaser has been laser focused on Giacchino's Batman March. That very Hans Zimmer-esque dun 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 dun. And by the time you get to the end of the movie with its hopeful turn for Batman, that march becomes a very beautiful, stirring, and heroic Batman theme. Like the
It's
fact that
it's like it transforms into the Elfman theme almost.
yes, the fact that track is called "The Bat's True Calling" fucking actually got like a little bit of a tear out of me when I was looking through the album when I got home.
Then on the other side, there was the fact that march naturally just kind of flowed into something the way. Apparently it was unplanned. They had that song set. They totally wanted to use it. Then they listened to Giacchino score and they realized like, oh damn, these could bridge into each other pretty easy. They just happened to be on a similar wavelength in the way they were working. It cracks me up though that fucking Nirvana sales rose like 700% over the last couple of weeks. Like Something in the Way is now like
Thanks,
a top 10
Batman.
chart piece of music. I can't go a day without hearing it, like on a TikTok or like even on the radio or something.
Something
Which
in
is
the Way
hilarious.
is
It's a good
the
song.
Batman song.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
And I'm obsessed with the fact that they did not cut out the semen line. There is a Batman movie where the lyric "drippings from my semen" is heard twice.
Is that actually in the song? I think you're making that up from hearing something. I'm desperately looking up Batman lyrics now. Oh no!
Batman lyrics.
For a whole
It's the
generation
Batman
of kids,
song.
this is going to be the Batman song. They're going to think of Nirvana as the Batman guys.
It still boggles my mind that entire Batman suite was composed before they'd even officially cast Pattinson. That was just a thing Matt Reeves commissioned from Giacchino so they could pitch people on the movie using the score.
Giacchino just had a Batman theme in him perfectly. But,
Jamie, I don't want to disappoint you, but apparently the actual lyrics are "and the drippings from the ceiling."
Is that what that is? I've
And the drippings-
always missed.
Yeah, I thought you were
That's so much-
joking. Honestly, I just thought you were going with your opening joke still.
Yeah,
So I was like, I was just gonna ride with it.
I've spent 20 years thinking that
I mean, it's
line
Kurt
is,
Cobain. It's
Yeah,
Kurt
in
Cobain. He's hard to
Jamie's
understand.
defense,
it fits with the rest of the song that Cobain would just say, "and the drippings from my seat."
Right, like not all the lyrics make a
it
ton
fits
of
the rest
sense.
of the album pretty well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's what the inspiration for that song was Kurt Cobain imagining, what if I was under a bridge homeless dying of AIDS? So it's not insane.
And that has everything to do with Batman, right?
You made the song your own, though. That's the important thing.
Says a lot about me as a person.
Yeah.
That's an interesting Rorschach test that we just stumbled upon.
So I was listening to Patton Oswalt on a podcast talking about like one of the books he put out, and he contacted David Byrne to read out like Talking Head lyrics, and he sent him what he wanted him to say for the narration of the book. And Byrne got back and was like half these lyrics are wrong, man. He's like, I'll still read them, and it's good. It's fun. I think it's cool because you took the song and interpreted it your own way. Once I put it out there, it's yours, right? The musician doesn't own the song anymore once they put it into the airwaves and you think about it. So that's how you interpreted the song. That's what it meant to you. That's cool. But these lyrics are not right. And we just had that experience with Jamie and Nirvana.
I hope we have that experience with Matt Reeves. Like, he listens to the episode. It's like, guys, you got it all wrong.
That's what it says? Jesus Christ, what have I done? And he goes back and he makes the Batman more profane, gets an R rating.
It's like, no, but the point of that
Batman
ending
just
was
growls
Batman needed to
cunts
kill
under
people.
his breath constantly.
Matt Reeves is in there like, hey, did you see the sexual tension and the creepistry happening between Batman and Selina? It's semen dripping. It's semen dripping, and it will be.
Okay, one more thing.
I've seen Pornhub. There's going to be a scene between Falcone and Selina.
Oh, no.
Also am I the only one who just kind of assumed we'd get John Turturro for a scene or two? I was not expecting him to be Lucifer.
I didn't really expect him to be a main character.
We got real actor Turturro too. That was the best part.
And
Just
everyone
him-
pronounced his
instead of
name
him,
right.
like being hired to be wacky.
There were like two pronunciations of Falcone and Falcone. There were like two different ways of people kind of flubbing it, I think. Which is fine.
It was
No
they
one
said
ever
it's
stopped them.
Falcone.
They said it both ways.
A newscaster does say Falcone at one point, which kind of
Yeah. Like there are
Way to
different
miss
shades
that
of
one,
people
Reeves.
saying his name.
I blame Nolan for that one.
Now it makes me confused. Like I used to have strong opinions on how it was said. Now I'm like, was I always wrong? Was I right at any point? I don't know.
No, I can actually say this. There's actually no joke here. It's the name is traditionally always pronounced Falcone. Nolan just for some reason decided to make it overly Italian sounding by adding an E at the end, where it's Falcone. It would be spelled with an I if it was Falcone, not an E. An
Oh, I
E in
learned something.
Italian name is,
Ooh.
especially Sicilian, would be silent.
Ah. That's the real reason people listen
I
to
have
our show. These
marinara
little
in my blood. I
tidbits.
know these things.
Jesus Christ, you should get that looked at. That sounds painful.
Oh,
my arms are crazy, Brad!
I'm just God. My arms are crazy, Brett. I would be so.
This is
God, I
a
would never
better
be hungry. I
segue
just
than
eat
you
my
thought,
arms.
because I wanted to talk about the most important part of the Batman that everyone has just kind of moved on from, and that's the gimmick tie-in Batman food.
Oh, it's fucking pizza.
It's back to the pizza, baby. First, I want to say, because I tried this, I need to talk about it on the show just to like get my money's worth. I got the Little Caesars Bat Pizza, the one that's shaped like a bat. It's a pepperoni pizza with wings, and for some reason it has a calzone head and tail. I ordered this thing one night, just feeling particularly manic, and just like, I'm just gonna eat the bat pussy. I don't understand why they made it like a weird. They made it a weird dripping calzone for the ears and the tail. It doesn't make any sense. I understand shaping the rest like a pizza pie, but anyways, this is the first time I've had Little Caesars in years, and they really need to put more sauce on their pizzas. That thing was bone dry.
I will maintain that regular hot and ready Little Caesars is remarkable for a pizza that you can just walk in and buy off the rack. That's a miracle to me.
Yeah. I mean, even for like, what is it, $6 or something? It fills the hole. It's fine.
But still, yeah.
This one, my memory of it was much better, actually. As a kid, I used to be totally excited for Little Caesars. And I picked this guy up, and I'm like, man, I just want the bat calzone parts, because there is like no sauce whatsoever on the rest of this pizza. They're trying to cut corners. They're cutting out the marinara.
My girlfriend makes pizza for a living, and I showed them a photo of that, and the look of professional disgust on their faces. Everything about that pizza is made incorrectly. It's not a thing that should exist.
Also, it's the official name is the Batman Calzone, which is a thing you never want to actually say to a server. Like, I've ordered the Batman Calzone. You can just tell they're looking at you like, sir, you're a grown man. Stop this.
Yeah, that will be $10.50 and all your self-respect, sir.
Yeah, right. I also got a peanut butter cookie dough pack with it, and that was also very tasty. It was an awful night for me. I just ate like the worst foods possible.
Good,
Zero
you're dead
regrets.
now. You've actually been
Pretty
dead
much.
for weeks. Yeah.
Bonus, the calzone was only $8, so man, at least it didn't hurt my pocketbook too much. But on the other side of this, now we have the prestige cinema restaurants that have their own Batman food. I was very jealous. Mike, you went to an Alamo Drafthouse, and yet you told us you did not get the Got Ham fried chicken sandwich or the Enigma
I regret
popcorn,
it, okay? But no, I didn't
The
get it.
utility belt,
I looked,
red
I was very
beer,
tempted.
the
The
Dark Knight
popcorn sounded
cocktail.
disgusting.
The Dark Knight cocktail. I'm looking at a picture of it on the Mondo or the Drafthouse website. It's Sailor Jerry spiced rum with grapefruit and maple syrup and topped with ginger beer. How is that a Dark Knight cocktail? What part of that is Batman?
There's nothing in any of those menu items that have anything to are remotely related to Batman. It's like Mad Libs.
I don't know. The Enigma popcorn
Gotham?
does
What
have
the fuck is that? What?
like Gotham. You know, Gotham. It's the sandwich Gotham needs, according to the website. It's served with fries, a pickle spear, and Justice.
I don't want to eat Justice.
I don't know. It's good for you. Anyways, the real miss, though, Mike, was the Enigma popcorn. Mostly because it just sounds tasty. I don't know what it has to do with the Riddler, but it's popcorn,
It sounds terrible.
butter, cinnamon sugar, garnished with fried churro bites. I'd eat that. That's like eating breakfast.
I feel like they could
cereal,
have at least
Captain
made it
Crunch.
green.
Yeah. They could have also
would've made
sold it for
sense.
St. Patrick's Day. Just carried it over. So anyways, we'll never know what that menu's like because I'm too far away from a draft house now, so I'll just have to dream. However, on my side, we have something called the Flicks Brew House in town, which is just a ripoff of the Alamo Draft House, like the generic version. They had the Gotham City Pizza, which was hot Italian sausage. I'm assuming because of Falcone. Red onion. I'm assuming because, I don't know. Red and green peppers because, I don't know.
Blood.
And 5 cheeses. 5 cheeses represent the different boroughs of Gotham. I don't remember if that's right. How many? Was it 7 vans or 5 vans that the Riddler blows up?
I think they made that up.
Yeah, I don't think this has anything to do with Batman either, to be honest. And then also confusing, they made a drink, the Enigma, which was vermouth, Silvergate Cabernet Sauvignon, Monin strawberry, and lemonade, which means it's a very red drink. Which, why not green? Why not, like, anything green in this drink to make a Green Riddler drink?
I just like the unintended comedy that's not even his fucking name in the movie.
So I'm gonna say, overall, they tried really hard to have tie-in food for this movie, and it let the film down. So it's a real shame. That's my biggest complaint about the film. It's not the movie kind of stopping and restarting and going a little long. It's the fact that the best thing they made out of this whole thing was got ham.
That's the real Harvey Two-Face.
I can't wait until they put a Two-Face in another one of these movies, and then we get a half-burnt half hamburger. The other side is just raw meat.
The only hamburger that will absolutely kill you.
What I'm saying here is, when the Batman hits streaming services, it's our duty to go into our own kitchens and make our own proper Batman food. It's the only way we're going to get through this. Although I might end up making the got ham on my own. It looks delicious.
It does actually look really fucking good. I'm not against us doing that for a commentary, as we all make appropriate the Batman themed food and try to do better than all of the marketing did.
I'm sorry. I had the idea in my mind that the drink I would make is just pure alcohol, and I'm just dumping a fucking like a liter of whiskey down my throat. I'm like,
it's vengeance.
Exactly. It's vengeance on me. Ugh.
I am the dark heart of Gotham City.
When they hear this pouring, it's not a signal. It's a warning.
So that's something to look forward to. I think it's almost guaranteed that we're going to go back in a short amount of time here once this finally hits streaming and do a proper commentary episode. So I hope everyone at home wants to hear about 245-ish, 250 of us really nerding out on Batman, like to a disgusting level. This was not even scratching the surface. You got like the shielded version of Bat nerdery.
Now we spend 45 minutes just talking about the Riddler's backstory.
This is us just the tipping. Like we're just just on the outside, just rubbing, just in a. Am I getting too graphic for you, or are you guys into this?
Oof.
Just. In
I'm not putting my binoculars down.
Just about to, and then just leaving the room, like just leaving the room, just without a word, getting in your car, driving away, butt ass naked,
Mike,
hard as a rock. Just never
are you
speaking to her again, and that's how my last 3 relationships ended, and I think it went out good.
I'm concerned that you're edging the audience of our show, Mike. I don't know if this is the way to get them back for next time. Then again, we haven't tried it before, so maybe sexual frustration is the chemistry we need to draw audiences back in. Folks, if you like being aroused but not climaxing, you can find more of Box Office Pulp. Fuck, was that a smooth transition? I'm impressed myself. I couldn't even finish it. It was so good. Fuck yeah! Folks, if you enjoyed this episode for whatever fucking reason, you can find more Box Office Pulp at Box Office Pulp on Twitter. We have boxofficepulp.com, where you can find our whole backlog of episodes. Many of them are commentaries. Some of them are informal kind of reviews like this. And sometimes we just pick topics of different movies or movie themes that we enjoy and want to explore more through conversation. We would love it if you check those out. If you left us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen to podcasts, be fantastic. We'd love it.
Really help us out. And if you also need help getting to all of like the different subscription services we're a part of, which is like Amazon Music, Spotify, blah, 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 we go to pod.link/boxofficepulp. It's a really handy dandy list of everything we can be found on.
Have we always been on that?
New one.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, we were aggregated on there a little while ago, so I claimed it. And now it's handy dandy. Gave us a nice little easy to get to link, and yeah, it's really nice. Show it to you.
I'd high five you, Mike, but who knows what we've been doing with our hands?
That would explain why there's this OnlyFans link here.
Join our OnlyFans.
I don't want to see the Box Office Pulp OnlyFans. It'd just be Box Office Pulp guy like, I'd rub butter on my nipples. Would you?
Box Office Pulp recommends going to fans only. It has less of a chance of getting struck down.
So much balloon porn.
Oh no. We've opened up the fucking Pandora's box here. I'm shutting things down. I'm shutting it down here. We're getting out. Thank you so much for listening, folks. That's a wrap. Get the hell out of here.
And like that, he's gone.
Oh god, now all I can imagine is the Riddler in full costume being like,
Jamie, I'm
Oh
just...
God, Paul Dano in that mask wanting you to get really into like cake farts.
No. I was just imagining Jamie doing a slow strip while also saying the incorrect sad version of something in the way.
I love that that's immortalized in a podcast forever.
I had a moment where I
I'm
was
so
like,
happy.
I've been singing this song. I've been singing a Seaman song? Is that on me?
I will maintain that it's not any weirder than most of the lyrics from that album.
Yeah, I mean, it would have fit, which is why I panicked and had to look it up.
Broken Hyman.
This is Box Office Pulp Guy, and this has been a Pulp Podcast production. Now please, 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 put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger and say goodnight.
And now, on with the show.